Network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. We will discuss Peter Kyle's vile comments about me earlier, but more importantly, the Online Safety Act. Is it a threat to free speech? Because I genuinely fear that, in fact, it already is. The Prime Minister announces this afternoon that he will recognise a Palestinian state in September if Israel meet certain terms. And we talk about Southport 1 year on, and potentially some of the causes of it. But before all of that and much more, let's get the news with Katie Bowen.
Nigel, thank you and good evening. The headlines at 7 o'clock. US President Donald Trump has said this evening that he did not discuss the UK's plan to recognise a Palestinian state with Sir Keir Starmer. That's as the Prime Minister announced this afternoon that the country plans to recognise Palestine unless the Israeli government takes steps to end the, quote, appalling situation in Gaza. The Prime Minister said he would lay the plans before the United Nations General Assembly in September. Israel's Foreign Ministry has said that the proposal is a reward for Hamas and harms efforts towards a ceasefire. Speaking in Downing Street, Sir Keir Starmer said that the UK will recognise Palestine unless the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, reaches a ceasefire, makes clear that there will be no annexation in the West Bank, and commits to a long-term peace process that delivers a two-state solution. He added that the UK is supporting efforts for a ceasefire.
Our goal remains a safe and secure Israel, alongside a viable and sovereign Palestinian state. But right now, that goal is under pressure like never before. So today, as part of this process towards peace, I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September.
Elsewhere, US President Donald Trump has spoken to reporters on Air Force One tonight, saying that the UK could reduce energy costs by 70% if we used North Sea oil. The president has now left Scotland after he officially opened a new 18-hole golf course near Balmedy. Speaking tonight, the president said that he spoke with the Prime Minister on the use of windmills, encouraging Sir Keir Starmer to get rid of them. He also said that he's not had any response from Russia on tariffs. The president's comments on energy come as he earlier hit out at British taxes, saying that they are so high it makes no sense. He added that North Sea oil is a treasure chest for the UK. The president spoke to reporters on the flight a short while ago.
It's the most expensive energy of any energy there is. And in fact, not every, I guess, I don't know, maybe some, but almost every windmill put up needs subsidy from the government. So instead of making money, they lose money. And that's why UK energy costs are very high. Because when we were flying over to the plane, they're all over the place. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing. I'll say it till I can't speak anymore. And I think we are having an impact. And they're starting to take a lot of windmills down. I mean, they're literally starting to take them down. They don't work, they're bad, and they're too costly. And every year you see them up there, the government is paying a lot of money. Whereas if you have oil, if you have other forms of energy, you make money on it. In other words, you bring down taxes.
And a 3-minute silence has taken place today to mark 1 year since the Southport stabbing attack. B.B. King, Elsie Dot Stancombe and Alice de Silva Aguiar were murdered by Axel Rudder-Cabana at a Taylor Swift dance class in Southport on the 29th of July last year. He attempted to murder 8 others. Earlier, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said that the nation stood with the families of the 3 victims. Those are your latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Nigel.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening. Well, the Online Safety Act came into force just 4 days ago. Well, I say that. Actually, the legislation was passed a couple of years ago, and it's come in stages. But it's already had quite an effect. There has not been initially much debate about it because the Conservative Party passed the legislation, the Labour Party inherited it. But it's pretty fair to say, you know, the Free Speech Union, people like myself and others, have been very concerned about it. And it led to this astonishing backlash from the Science Minister, Peter Kyle, on Sky News this morning.
I see that Nigel Farage is already saying that he's going to overturn these laws. So, you know, we have people out there who are extreme pornographers, peddling hate, peddling violence. Nigel Farage is on their side. Make no mistake about it, if people like Jimmy Savile were alive today, he'd be perpetrating his crimes online. And Nigel Farage is saying that he's on their side.
Well, just to be sort of very clear, I'm not on Jimmy Savile's side. I thought it was an absolutely appalling thing for him to say. Probably shows you just how much trouble they're in as a government. And a very stupid thing to say, given that his own party leader, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, of course, faced a barrage of criticism for not prosecuting Jimmy Savile when he was in charge of the Crown Prosecution Service and subsequently apologised to the nation. But I don't really want to spend too much time talking about Peter Kyle. I think there are bigger and more important aspects to talk about, including this community note on X that was put back to Peter Kyle. It said, since coming into force, Online Safety Act has blocked, restricted, censored content that wasn't what the Act was for. This includes immigration and even parliamentary debates. Well, let me give you briefly my very serious objections to the Online Safety Act. The first is we're told it's to protect children. But I suspect most 13-year-olds are more tech-savvy than Peter Kyle, because there are things out there called VPNs. Yes, there are ways that you can get around all of this, ways that you can hide your IP address, and they'll cost you £2.50 a month or something like that. Interestingly, since the 25th of July, there was one particular VPN site who'd seen a 2,000% increase in the number of people subscribing to it. And here's the worry. Of course, we want to protect children from extreme content, but if they go to get their stuff through VPNs, they'll then be able to access the dark web and stuff that is even more horrendous than what is generally available online. So maybe this is just a sledgehammer to miss the nut. The worry is that it leads to a genuine crackdown on free speech. Unbelievably, it gives unchecked ministerial power to Peter Kyle. Yes, he will be able to unilaterally impose new censorship rules without any parliamentary debate or vote and make sure that Ofcom regulate according to his demands. And perhaps the biggest worry is Section 179, which says that if anybody communicates something that is false but causes non-trivial psychological harm, that could in fact be criminal behaviour, which, if you think about it, means that all satire would be dead, because all satire takes a grain of truth and exaggerates it and presents it in a way that is slightly false. So I genuinely think this is a threat on free speech. Unbelievably, Conservative Member of Parliament Katie Lamb gave a speech in Parliament about the rape gangs. That speech, despite being given under parliamentary privilege, has already been edited online. Even comments of Elon Musk himself have been edited online. I've been supported, interestingly, by Jonathan Hall KC, who is the terrorism czar. And he says this act simply won't work or achieve its goal. I don't know whether Peter Kyle thinks he's a supporter of Jimmy Savile. I don't know. But I'm keen to ask you, do you think, as I do, that this is a threat to free speech? Yes or no? Please give me your thoughts. Tweet #Farage on GB News or email farage@gbnews.com. I'm joined by Sir Ranald Jar-Warden, a former Conservative MP and Minister, and Joe Phillips, journalist and former Press Secretary to the late Paddy Ashdown. Ranald, the demands on the last government following suicides of teenage kids, we all know there is some shocking stuff on the internet. We all know the stuff on the internet we would much rather our kids did not see. And that clearly is why the Conservative government put forward the online safety bill as it was. But just sometimes the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I mean, I'm guessing this is not how you wanted it to work out.
No, not at all. And as you said, a lot of this is in the application of the law. As you say, Peter Kyle, as Secretary of State, he has the ability to choose how it's implemented. So, you know, the intentions of the bill, the Act now, can be good. And as you've set out, there are some very good reasons why we might want to protect our children in this way.
Absolutely.
But it's the application of the law that's absolutely wrong here. The fact that news stories on Twitter or X are being censored, that's not surely the intention of any politician, and it's gone wrong. And there's another thing here as well, which is, I think the truth is that politicians are very bad at figuring out where technology is going to go in the future.
This is exactly what I was going to get on to. When you say of the future,
even now,
I suspect most 13-year-olds, as I said a moment ago, are more tech-savvy than Peter Kyle.
But bear in mind, this legislation was drafted a couple of years ago. Things move on in you know, such a pace. And as well as things like, you know, VPNs that you mentioned and so on, frankly, the actual way to protect young people is to keep technology away for as long as possible. And I think, you know, smartphones out of schools, smartphones hopefully out of young children's lives, that's the only way to really protect them.
I'll come back on the smartphone point in a minute. I mean, you know, here are ministers defending this act, shadow ministers endeavouring to say as little as they possibly can. But if it's here to protect kids, why on earth does it set up an elite force of police officers to monitor content around illegal immigration and asylum hotels?
Well, I think, you know, Ranald's put his finger on it, and it is the fact that politics and politicians are absolutely and totally useless when it comes to dealing with technology. And we've seen that with successive governments who've had the wool pulled over their eyes by people who go, oh, this scheme will be marvellous, it'll sort out the health service, it'll sort out
the spending on health on tech has been
extraordinary. You know, and it's because nobody will say, hang on a minute, how does that work? Just run that by me one more time. Because people are too afraid of looking stupid. And we all know that techie people, and I'm apologising if there's any nerdy tech people out there, but, you know, they do have a way of talking to you as though you're completely stupid. So you sort of think, oh, well, I won't ask, because obviously I am stupid. So I think that is part of the problem. I think Peter Kyle's comments are appalling. I think they are, you know, they're offensive, but they're also ill-judged. And I'm very surprised because he is usually a very sure-footed minister.
That's exactly what I thought this morning. Of all of the ministers that appear regularly on the media, he seems to be one of the most intelligent, one of the most balanced. But this was really almost, almost you know, a meltdown.
Well, it was extraordinary, Nigel. And I just think, you know, you would only behave like that if you know in your heart that this is not a very good bill. And I think, you know, we're already seeing, I think there's something like 300 or 400,000 signatures on a petition. And a lot of these are little hobby organisations, you know, that can't afford to have the technology that they should have. So it's, again, it's an example of, you know, good intentions ending up.
Now, satire. One of the things that the Brits are very good at, through cartoons, through jokes, through Gilbert and Sullivan songs, it doesn't matter what it is, satire. And I really do worry. And, you know, to be fair, Ranald talked about interpretation. But the idea that if you communicate something that is false, well, you could even say one person's truth is another person's falsitude and vice versa, that causes non-trivial psychological harm. But, I mean, any joke could cause offence.
Well, yes, of course it could. I mean, you know, the sort of things that a lot of comedians 20, 30, 40 years ago are deeply, deeply offensive now. You know, and we wouldn't countenance it. So everything changes and time changes and acceptance changes on language and things like that.
But the point about comedians is if comedians say something that is out of tune with the times, they stop getting bookings.
Well, exactly.
The market sorts it out. Or the TV won't take them. Or I mean, is free speech under threat with this, in your view?
I think the whole question of free speech is very difficult, as we know, because I think there are an awful lot of bad actors out there who are very happy to put out downright lies, whether they're rogue states or whether they're, you know, enemy states. But we know there is false information out there. We know that some of that information can be very dangerous.
But how do we regulate?
Well, you can't, because the horse has already bolted.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem. And actually what you have to do is you have to look at a way, you know, and Ranald, you know, I love you dearly, but you're living in cloud cuckoo land if you think you can keep smartphones out of the hands of kids.
Well, no, this is not true. No, I've got a thought on that. Just quickly, Ranald, do you accept that the implications of this are a threat to free speech?
In the way it's been introduced, yes. And this is actually one of the reasons when it was going through Parliament, Kemi actually opposed it. In fairness to her, she was a Secretary of State. It was a brave thing to do. She actually said this was a bad piece of law.
Initially, they all voted. Literally, you all voted for it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And it's in the implementation that it's been exposed.
Now, here's a thought. Yeah. A techie tells me, a couple of techies tell me, that the way to solve this is your kids have a handset that is limited to the number of functions it can perform, limited to the number of apps that it can actually download. And that's not to say another kid at school won't have a different phone, but surely the answer must be a tech solution somewhere.
Totally. You've got to really have that physical solution rather than a technical one, and that is about stopping children having smartphones. If they need a phone for safety reasons because they're travelling long distances, give them a brick. I remember my old Nokia 3210 with Snake. That was the best thing you could do. That's fine.
And is there an irony here, Joe, sort of final thought on this, that we are restricting content, I'm talking here about current affairs and debate, to 16 and 17-year-olds.
When we give
whilst at the same time, they're going to get the vote.
Yeah. And the other thing that I think is really important, just on the tech solution, you've got to make the big tech companies unlock stuff. So one of the problems, I think, with Molly Russell, the young girl who killed herself, was it took forever for her parents to find out what she'd been looking at. And I think, you know, the tech companies have got a role to play because a lot of it's about algorithms. But I think, you know, the idea that...
But they also have a right to protect our privacy. You know, or we have a right for them to protect our privacy, except in extreme circumstances, such as a court order.
The children are under the instruction of their adult parental guardians.
Yes, but in this case, this was the parents of Molly Russell, the ones who accessed the content. I don't think any of that should happen without a court order. And I worry, I just feel we have a government that wants to control as much as it possibly can. We're talking of the government. Big speech by Keir Starmer this afternoon. The United Kingdom is to recognise Palestine as a state unless Israel meets certain conditions. Is this the right thing to do? Would this be a reward for Hamas? I wonder how British Jews are feeling this evening.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, you say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I asked you, the audience, do you think the Online Safety Act is a threat to free speech? Joe says increased criminalisation of everyday activities is making otherwise law-abiding citizens increasingly distrustful of the police and government institutions. Meanwhile, everyday crime goes unpunished. Michael says, dear Mr Farage, I'm 73 and this government is censoring my online access. How can that possibly be deemed lawful? Well, because it's an act of Parliament and it is about interpretation. And finally, Kyle says, when the intellectual argument has been lost, the left resort to petty insult, except this went so much lower. Kyle won't last much longer. Well, we'll see. Thank you very much. Now, let us see. And, this has been much anticipated. There are a growing number, last number I know, 133 Labour MPs demanding that the Prime Minister recognises the state of Palestine. But, of course, as far as Starmer's concerned, electorally, perhaps slightly darker forces with Corbyn and others on the left. This is what Sir Keir had to say this afternoon.
Our goal remains a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable and sovereign Palestinian state. But right now, that goal is under pressure like never before. So today, as part of this process towards peace, I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September.
So we as a country will recognise the State of Palestine, provided Israel, or we won't do it if Israel agrees to a ceasefire, ends the appalling situation in Gaza, which is pretty subjective. And as long as Israel commits to a long-term sustainable peace, but there's no demand on the Palestinians at all. Absolutely zero. Do the Palestinians have to recognise the legitimacy of the State of Israel and promise to exist peacefully in coexistence? No. My view, for what it's worth, I think this is actually rewarding Hamas in so many ways. And have we all forgotten? I think we have, the barbarities that took place on the 7th of October. And I think there'll be many, many British Jews tonight very, very upset by what the Prime Minister has done. I'm joined by Sir Michael Ellis, former Attorney General. My panel back with me too. I guess this was predictable?
Sadly, it was, because I think we have a Prime Minister who is inherently weak. This is not the action of a strong Prime Minister. This is being forced on him. After all, this is the same Prime Minister who was bullied by Mauritius, a country with a population of 200,000 people. And frankly, this is not a position of strength. As you said, Nigel, this is a reward for terrorism.
That's how I feel about it.
The history will show, if you look at how countries have been recognised in the past, and then make this comparison this comparison will show, for the record, that the pressure to recognise this entity now stems from October the 7th, a murderous act where people were savagely butchered, babies put in ovens, and people raped in front of their family members. And that's the legacy that this government will impose on history. But there's another aspect to this. How can you have a one-sided set of conditions?
Well, that was the point I was trying to make.
Yeah. I come from a legal background, so normally if you are going to set a set of conditions, you'll impose conditions on both sides. I only hear conditions on one side. Israel must do this, Israel must do that. Israel would say, wouldn't they, that we have said that we will abide by a ceasefire, but Hamas has rejected those ceasefires. And of course they would do that because they don't care about their own people. How about imposing some conditions on Hamas to stop throwing gay people off tall buildings, to stop trying to... There's another point, Nigel, which is this, and I don't think it's been mentioned anywhere else, the Montevideo Convention of 1933. That is...
It takes a former Attorney General to mention this.
to mention that. But actually, there's a set of principles about when you recognise countries, when you recognise states. This government pretends that it is interested in international law. Well, under that convention, the Montevideo Convention of 1933, the Palestinian entity does not meet the criteria for recognition of a state. It just doesn't. Because one of the criteria is it has to have defined borders, and there isn't a recognition of defined borders. It has to be a stable government, which there isn't. So the conditions are not met under that convention. So for a government where they say that they want to abide by every iota of international law, this wouldn't do that. But the main thing is it's a reward for terrorism.
Yeah. Joe, it's interesting. I mean, I think we all agree, everyone agrees, President Trump agrees, everyone agrees that the scenes of suffering in Gaza are awful, that Netanyahu has been very good at losing most of the friends that Israel had. But this act by a British Prime Minister, where there are only sets of conditions on one side.
Well, first of all, I don't think he did set conditions on one side, because he did say, if we'd heard the rest of his speech, he talked about Hamas laying down their arms, releasing the rest of the hostages and having no role in the future government of Palestine.
That's true, but he didn't ask the new state to recognise the legitimacy of Israel and to end its fight against them.
But I think, I was going to make exactly the same point that Michael did, without referencing the Montevideo conference.
Well, we've all learned something, though,
haven't we?
There you are. That's why he comes in.
But I mean, I heard Lord Darragh, Kim Darragh, former British ambassador to the States, talking yesterday, saying exactly the same thing, that, without recognised borders and stable government, and actually those borders have been even more eroded. And I also think, it's important to mention that in 2014, the British Parliament actually voted then to recognise the state of Palestine, but as part of ongoing peace negotiations towards... And Tobias Ellwood, who's often on this programme, was the Middle East minister at the time. And the whole point was that you had that at the time when you use it. And I think it's a real shame that this looks like caving into pressure from people who are making a point, but it's not going to solve the problem. And the problem is the appalling way that the Israeli government under Netanyahu have disproportionately punished an entire nation of people. And I think it was really significant that Donald Trump said yesterday, he recognises that people are being starved. That is genocide.
One of the other things Trump said, though, was that it's not going to make any difference. When Macron did this, he said it's irrelevant. I'm afraid it's going to be irrelevant when Starmer does it as well, because it simply doesn't have the... it doesn't have the standing.
And Ranald just caving in. I mean, this is a Prime Minister who caves into almost everything. When I heard him saying a couple of weeks ago that he wasn't going to recognise the state of Palestine, I realised that he was.
Yes, I mean, sadly, he doesn't have a good track record on this sort of foreign affairs and decision-taking, including with the Chagos Islands, as Michael rightly said. But I do think there is a point here, which is the British and American governments do need to act in lockstep on big issues. And by taking a decision that's out of step with the US, we're actually, first of all, losing the influence that we should have with our close friends in the US, but second, we're losing the impact of us acting together.
Well, isn't that because Starmer wants to pivot back towards Europe?
Well, I think he's caving in to backbenchers on the, what is this, the third time I'm asking?
Yeah. Final thought, if I can, Sir Michael. I've spoken to a lot, I'm sure all of us have, over the last couple of years, a lot of Jewish people living in Britain, increasingly worried about living in this country. If they've got kids at university, they're being subjected to pretty endless, nasty abuse. How do you think the Jewish community feels tonight?
I think the Jewish community in this country feels probably worse than at any time since Oswald Mosley was a political entity in this country.
Back in the 30s?
Back in the 30s. I think that the rise in anti-Semitism is extraordinary and it is exponential. The attacks, the institutional failures to protect the Jewish community, that's what's really significant, Nigel. It's when anti-Semitism has always existed. It's existed since the days of the pharaohs. It's not going to go away. Where you see a country really failing is when the institutions that are designed to protect a minority fail to do so. The quangos, the police force...
So it's not the rise of anti-Semitism you're identifying, it's the acceptance.
It's both. It's both, and I think that is the really significant issue. And we're seeing such things as it wasn't in this country, but the Vueling Airlines incident last week where Jewish children were kicked off an aeroplane. Other incidents, that hasn't been resolved yet, the exact details of that. But, you know, there are repeated incidents here, and I think the Jewish community will be very concerned.
I'm sure they will. Thank you very much indeed.
But there are people like the actress Miriam Margolyes, you know, speaking as a Jew born in 1941, speaking out against Israel. And I think, you know, it's really important. There are people, you know, who are saying, not in our name is what...
No, but there is a difference here between condemning what's happening in Gaza and recognising a Palestinian state, which, frankly, I don't think is being asked to do enough. But that's where we are. It's 1 year on from the appalling atrocities in Southport. We'll discuss a report that's out that suggests that community space closures caused the Southport riots. Really? Well, we'll discuss that in a moment.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
A change across southern and eastern parts of Europe. Heavy rain easing from the west and heatwave conditions easing in the east. Nevertheless, it is still set to be hot on Wednesday, particularly across parts of Greece, and any persistent outbreaks of rain that we've had earlier in the week tending to turn more showery in nature. But a very different story across Spain, Portugal and across the Canary Islands. Plenty of sunshine to go around and feeling hot in that sunshine too. And that theme is set to continue for the end of the week and as we head into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now we are going to see some further showers as we go through the rest of today, tonight and into tomorrow, but there will also be a lot of dry weather around. We still have high pressure staying to the southwest of us, and it's this that's partly leading to the largely fine weather, but also we're kind of in between frontal systems moving through. So although there are still some showery bursts across central southern parts of England in particular as we go through tonight, many places will have some dry weather and some clear skies too. Where we see those clear skies, particularly towards the west but also the east, we could see a few pockets of mist and fog developing, but temperatures not dropping a huge amount. It is going to be a relatively warm night for most of us. Then taking a closer look at first thing tomorrow morning, and quite cloudy across many parts of Scotland, a few showery bursts, nothing particularly heavy, and there will be some brighter breaks, particularly towards the Western Isles and maybe some parts towards eastern Scotland too. Across Northern Ireland, it's looking bright to start, but there is some cloud clouds, some rain waiting to push in from the west. And then across much of England and Wales, a pretty mixed picture. Some showery bursts here and there, but also some brighter sunny weather, particularly towards the southwest, and also parts of East Anglia and Lincolnshire should have some decent sunshine first thing. Then as we go through the day, further showery spells of rain, particularly across eastern parts. Here they could turn a little bit heavier across parts of eastern England in particular. A slice of sunshine for some western areas, and in that sunshine feeling pretty warm with temperatures peaking in the low to mid 20s for quite a few of us, but some cloudier, wetter weather coming in from the west later on. Then looking ahead to Thursday, and a swathe of fairly hefty showery rain looks set to push its way eastwards across southern parts, and this could bring some thunder, could bring some heavy downpours, perhaps could cause some problems. A few showers likely further north. A few showers still possible on Friday, but by the weekend, by Saturday, it's looking drier for many of us. See you later.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
It is 1 year ago that those 3 little girls were murdered and nearly 8 others lost their lives as well. It was 1 day on from that atrocity that the Prime Minister went to Southport.
Time for change, Stormer. Come on, it's needed. How many more children? Is it mine next? What, are you going to stand up for our children? Right. Bye-bye. Got your photo. You go. Make a real change, Prime Minister. Make a real change! Are you going to change the Bible?
It was really quite astonishing that. You know, he turned up for a very brief period of time at a very, very grave moment and started getting that kind of abuse from ordinary folk living in Southport. It was almost the day, I think, in many ways, that his problems as Prime Minister began, because what was happening by then already was the internet was going mad. There were all sorts of theories. There was a reluctance, a deep reluctance, a mistaken reluctance on behalf of the government to tell us anything about the perpetrator. But a new theory has emerged today. I'm joined by Dr. Parth Patel, Associate Director for Democracy and Politics at the Institute for Public Policy. And Parth, you're suggesting that a contributory factor to the riots, and you could see just from that clip, it was bubbling already within the community. You're suggesting that one of the reasons is a lack of community spaces and places for people to go.
That's correct.
Surely, so you're saying there weren't enough theme parks to go to, or pubs weren't open, or what are you really saying here?
I'm really talking about places where we can hang out. Something as mundane as that: pubs, parks, cafes, community centres, libraries. These places have slowly disappeared over the past 10 to 15 years, ravaged by austerity, and they really matter. They matter for many things, but one thing that we do know is the more you rub shoulders with people from different backgrounds to the ones you came from, the less likely you are to have resentment against them. And another thing we do know is that common ground in this country is shrinking. It's been shrinking for about the past 10 years, and certainly since last year's riots, I can't see any evidence to the contrary. We do have more resentment.
So you're talking about a form of societal breakdown?
I'm talking about, a sense of polarisation, the increasing belief that for me to win, you have to lose. That's a really toxic premise to build a nation on, and we need to push back against that. And we're talking about why has that happened? And 2 things happened in the 2010s. One is the introduction of austerity that ravaged these physical places where we can hang out. And the second is the introduction of the smartphone, widely adopted. In 2010, less than half of us had one.
But aren't you missing something? Lockdown. Repeated lockdowns. Actually, if community cohesion breaking down was a contributory factor to what we saw, then I think lockdown must be part of it. Now, you're suggesting, your think tank, that the way we solve this is to put tax on companies that make profits.
Well, yeah, we're introducing quite an imaginative idea.
Raising taxes is not particularly imaginative.
Well, look, the proposal is...
It's a great idea.
Thank you very much.
Oh, well, there you are. There's always one.
There's been a huge shift, Nigel, in how we buy things. There hasn't really been a big shift in how we tax things, right? Gone are the days where we would rock up to an Argos with that heavy tome, that catalogue, you'd flick through those flimsy pages, find the thing you needed to do, punch the numbers in, take it up to this tiny little shop, and that's all of a sudden they just bring out whatever you want. That was an amazing kind of magic trick. No one does that anymore. We just tap it into our phones and we order it online. Yeah, we still tax Argos more than we tax Amazon because it's a bricks and mortar business. Yeah, and so that needs to catch up. Let's take some more money off the online retailers. They have some responsibility.
There is some truth in that. Now, Ranald, you know, Path is genuinely charming, but clearly bonkers, do you think? I mean, surely the anger you could see, even one day on, from what had happened, it's deeper than that, isn't it? Isn't it distrust of government,
Nigel,
distrust of lies?
40% of the people who were arrested... Well, no, this is...
The question was to me.
I know it was, but this whole thing about anger, 40% of the people who were arrested during the riots had got either convictions or had been reported for domestic abuse. And that tells you something about anger.
Of course. But equally, just as with the Epping Hotel last week, most of those people there were genuine members of the community from Essex.
So I think there is a wider problem here, and I do salute Path's sort of attempt to try and find a way to bring people, which is right. And bringing people together, in my view, has to be about integration of communities. You know, in so many parts of the country, people are kept in silos, and that is not a way that we can possibly run a country with, you know, so many different people speaking only their own language, not English, and so on. And I think there's knock-on consequences to that, which is the lack of understanding. But in terms of the idea that this is all going to be solved by creating new youth centres, that's just not right. Actually, what's going to solve this thing is more prosperity in more corners of this country, growing the economy. High streets bring cafes, high streets bring pubs, and if high streets can't succeed because the economy is not thriving, then that's going to remove those places. And what's happening right now? Tax rises on cafes, on pubs, thanks to the NI hike from Rachel Reeves. That's going to
I mean, we're actually playing into the online world, aren't we?
Well,
this Labour government is helping the online world.
What do you mean by that, sorry?
Well, I think that the increase in NI, the rateable business values that have gone back to pre-pandemic levels, effectively, it is retail and hospitality that are really taking the hit.
So I think I agree with both of those comments to some extent. Like the deterioration of the high street to me is probably the most vivid symbol of the sense of national malaise that so many of us feel today. My parents run a corner shop. I've seen that high street change over the past 30 years. Shops boarded up,
and
benches
it's not very good.
Why have they removed the benches from the high street? What's that about, right? This is important, but I don't disagree that economics matters, right? Long queues for the NHS, unaffordable housing, low growth, lack of jobs, competition for those things. Those things all do matter for why we feel more in conflict with one another. But that's the answer everyone always goes to. And what we're trying to point out in this report, in addition to resource scarcity, relationship scarcity
I don't think you're wrong about society being more fractured, about people feeling less together. I don't use it as an excuse for those that went genuinely to riot. One quick, what the Farage moment, I'm going to get all your one-sentence comments on this, that 600,000 graduates are now on benefits. I think, ever since the year 2000, when we announced that 50% of people would go to university, that, frankly, we have misled hundreds of thousands of young people into thinking that a degree in whatever it was, at whatever level, was the way forward. Joe, it was the Labour Party that started it. This is the result.
Well, they didn't follow up with things alongside of apprenticeships and training for people who weren't going to university. And we've seen the terrible impact that making nursing a degree course has had on the NHS, and you lose the whole tranche
this is
of
about the people going to university.
But it is, and that's the point. And a lot of these people shouldn't have gone, should they?
Absolutely not. You know, it was a con. It was a great swizz from Tony Blair and his
But there was nothing else offered.
to try and keep people out of unemployment, off the figures, so they could massage the figures. It's not right, and it's it's even worse now. The Labour Party today are scrapping degree-level apprenticeships, which we brought in to try and counter it. We're seeing some great opportunities for young people, not costing them a penny, earning while they're learning, and that's being scrapped.
I wonder, Parth, whether this actually is part of the anger that we've got in society, that we've told all these kids, go to university, and even when they do get a reasonable job, you know, they're paying 8-9% of it back in terms of repayment on top of taxes. Blimmin' tough, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and I think this statistic is emblematic of a broken economic model. It wasn't so long ago we used to think that as long as a state respects markets and gave it skilled labour in the form of university graduates, growth would take care of itself. You'll earn high wages, be able to get by. That is just no longer true. The number of people going to university in this country has rocketed.
Well, I think
wages have been pretty flat.
Well, you and I will agree it is a broken economic model. We may disagree on how to solve it. Thank you for coming in. Thank you to my panel. In a moment, I find this one really hard to believe, but you know the Jolly Fisherman mascot in Skegness? Well, apparently the animal charity PETA think it should be taken down because it talks about being cruel to fish. It's not April Fool's, I promise.
Five hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, better known as PETA, have decided not just that we should all give up food and go vegan and all the rest of it, but actually we should change some of our well-known national architecture, and that includes that extraordinary mascot that we know Skegness for so well, the Jolly Fisherman. Now, apparently, under PETA's terms, that's really bad news because that is, it sort of celebrates the joy of killing fish, apparently. Now, they've got a new design. No, they really have. Let's have a look at it. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Skegness, a happy place. They obviously don't know that actually place stocks of Skegness are very, very low. They might have chosen a different fish. Never mind, I'm joined by Lucy Watson, a spokesman of PETA. Lucy, this is bonkers. I get it. You think I should go vegan and all the rest of it, and that's fine. But to change the symbol of Skegness, this is almost like modern-day Cromwell Puritanism.
Well, Nigel, look, the bottom line is there's absolutely nothing jolly about celebrating mutilating fish. And so it's the perfect time for Skegness to embrace a new kind tradition and rebrand to a happy place. And I think you'll agree it's got quite the ring to it, you know. And we know that fishing is immensely cruel. We know that fish can suffer for up to an hour in agony as they suffocate in the air after they're dragged from their ocean homes. Many are gutted while they're still alive. It's just horrific, and there's no need to do this in 2025.
Even if that was true, right? Even if what you say is true, why rewrite history? Skegness, towns like Skegness, up that east coast, and you go further up to Hull and Grimsby particularly, where fishing, even whaling was a very, very big part of what certainly Hull was doing for many, many years. But you're trying to rewrite history.
We're simply trying to get everyone to extend compassion to all animals and fish.
I understand your compassion point, and you can argue that with me. You know.
Well, you know, then tradition is never an excuse for cruelty. You know, there are many traditions that we no longer partake in because society has evolved. And, you know, there's a vegan revolution. More people are going vegan than ever before. Because we understand that it's not right to treat animals this way. It's not right to take them from their homes and gut them while they're still alive. It's not necessary. And we just want people to show kindness to fish.
I'm making a different point. Even if there was a massive change of view, and we decided we didn't want to eat fish anymore, which I think is pretty doubtful. But, you know, you're right, more people are going vegan, but I suspect it's still going to be a minority activity in 10, 20 years' time. Might be a growing minority, I'll grant you that.
Certainly.
But it'll be a minority. But to take away historic symbols, to take away the identity, in some ways, of Skegness, you are trying to erase a part of history that you don't approve of.
No, that's absolutely not the case. And look, this is all about evolving. And this is a great opportunity for Skegness to introduce and embrace a kinder, better tradition that shows kindness and compassion to all animals. You know, what's the harm in that? And, you know,
I mean, a happy place. It's the corniest, most ridiculous.
Happy place. I think it's got a lovely ring to it, Nigel.
Absolute nonsense.
I think it's got a lovely ring to it. And you know
nonsense.
what? I think our statue will bring a much-needed tourism boost to the area. And, you know, we know that Skegness is, you know, struggling economically. And, you know, we've offered to help cover the costs of the new statue. And this will bring more tourism into the area. And this will show tourists and locals alike that it's helpful and good
so fishing's
to respect.
Got to go. Fishing's got to go. All animal farming has got to go. All of it. No chickens. It's cruel.
It's unnecessary.
What about household pets?
Well, of course, companion animals is a completely different topic, and we're here to discuss the Skegness statue. But you know,
no, I'm just asking you because you know, I mean, I'll be honest. You know, I have over the years had PETA spokesman on, and I, you know, GBNews is genuinely a home of free speech. But isn't that the problem, that you're extending and extending and extending, and ultimately, many of you, your activists, don't think we should even have household pets?
Well, that's absolutely not the case. You know, PETA is perfectly fine, and we embrace people having companion animals, especially animals that are in shelters that need good homes. You know, there's an animal homelessness and overpopulation crisis. So, of course, we would encourage people with the time, money and resources to look after an animal to adopt an animal from a shelter. But we're not on here to discuss companion animals. This is about fish. And fish have feelings, and they deserve to live just like we do.
There you are. I think there was a phrase in the Nemo film, wasn't there? Something to do with that. Now, the last time one of your gang was on, I did promise I'd go for a vegan meal.
You did.
I haven't broken the promise.
Good.
I just haven't kept it yet, but I will.
I will hold you to it.
But I know I will. But I understand you've got a gift for me of some kind.
I have a lovely gift for you. This is just some lovely vegan caviar for you.
Vegan caviar?
Now, this is made from 100% seaweed, and it's used in some of the top restaurants in the UK. They even serve this at the BAFTAs, Nigel, so I don't know what you have at your parliamentary dinners, but maybe try some after the show with some crackers. It's really delicious. And you might be interested to know that kelp and seaweed farming are thriving in the UK, so that would be a great alternative for fishermen to get into and embrace. It's much better for the planet and the animals and our health.
Well, thank you for my gift.
Here's a free vegan starter kit in case you're inspired to make the switch.
Well, there you are.
You've got it all.
Never let it be said that I don't allow people onto this show with different views, and we can't debate things that we disagree in a civil manner, which is what free speech actually really ought to be all about. Now, I'm going to give you all a word of advice. If you attempt to do DIY and you're not really up to it, you don't really know what you're doing, but you think it'll be okay, I can just muddle through. My advice to you is don't deprive another person of a job. Don't deprive somebody with expertise to come in and do it, because I thought at 6 o'clock this morning that I was capable of doing a bit of DIY, and I finished up with half the electricity going and flooding. So please, 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 employ somebody sensible. Don't do it yourself. Not a great start to my day, Jacob.
Well, you know the Hill Belloc line. Lord Finchley tried to mend the electric like himself. It struck him dead and serve him right. For it is the duty of the noble man to give employment to the artisan. And I think that is your sentiment exactly.
Applies beautifully. Jacob, what are we discussing this evening?
We're going to talk about free speech, actually, and what happened in Southport, and the failure to tell people what was going on, and the mood in the country at the moment, that people are very nervous and we need proper information to understand what's happening. And Jonathan Hall, the KC who does the terrorism review, is going to be talking to me about why it's important to give out information.
For criticising the Online Safety Act, I was called a Jimmy Savile supporter, but I think Jonathan Hall did as well.
Well, I think you were right to criticise it. I was in Parliament when it went through, and it's not easy because you want to protect children.
I know, but the law of unintended consequences.
And it hasn't worked. I'm calling you Jimmy Savile is bonkers.
Awful, horrid. Right, I'm off for a drink. Enough.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now we are going to see some further showers as we go through the rest of today, tonight and into tomorrow, but there will also be a lot of dry weather around. We still have high pressure staying to the southwest of us, and it's this that's partly leading to the largely fine weather, but also we're kind of in between frontal systems moving through. So although there are still some showery bursts across central southern parts of England in particular as we go through tonight, many places will have some dry weather and some clear skies too. Where we see those clear skies, particularly towards the west, but also the east, we could see a few pockets of mist and fog developing, but temperatures not dropping a huge amount. It is going to be a relatively warm night for most of us. Then taking a closer look at first thing tomorrow morning, and quite cloudy across many parts of Scotland, a few showery bursts, nothing particularly heavy, and there will be some brighter breaks, particularly towards the Western Isles and maybe some parts towards eastern Scotland too. Across Northern Ireland, it's looking bright to start, but there is some clouds, some rain waiting to push in from the west, and then across much of England and Wales, a pretty mixed picture. Some showery bursts here and there, but also some brighter sunny weather, particularly towards the southwest, and also parts of East Anglia and Lincolnshire should have some decent sunshine first thing. Then as we go through the day, further showery spells of rain, particularly across eastern parts. Here they could turn a little bit heavy across parts of eastern England in particular. A slice of sunshine for some western areas, and in that sunshine feeling pretty warm with temperatures peaking in the low to mid 20s for quite a few of us, but some cloudier, wetter weather coming in from the west later on. Then looking ahead to Thursday, and a swathe of fairly hefty showery rain looks set to push its way eastwards across southern parts, and this could bring some thunder, could bring some heavy downpours, perhaps could cause some problems. A few showers likely further north. A few showers still possible on Friday, but by the weekend, by Saturday, it's looking drier for many of us. See you later.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can win big, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? The holiday of a lifetime? Or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? Lines close on the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're
the failure
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially